we were happy to share this update with you. But you might still be wondering, how are actors being prepared to reach our hearts through their performance? How will the tone and filming style be selected to represent the gospel accounts? And maybe the biggest question you have is, when will cameras start rolling? Stay tuned for a future update. Imagine the powerful impact this video series will have on people. It will help you and me follow Jesus' footsteps closely. It will help us draw closer to Jehovah, whom Jesus perfectly imitated as a human. But the benefits go far beyond you and me. As stated in the 2020 annual meeting, it is likely this series will be used to touch the hearts and minds of billions of resurrected ones in the coming new world. Just think how this video series could help them learn about the example that Jesus set. Imagine how the visual portrayal of his warm, humble, and approachable personality will help them to come to know Jehovah intimately. How exactly will we use this new series to teach resurrected ones? We will have to wait and see what Jehovah directs. We are confident Jehovah is blessing this work, and we will continue to look to Jehovah for direction as we move ahead with the good news according to Jesus.
Well, as you likely noticed, when this video production was first starting, Australia was one of the countries that had the least impact from the pandemic. And so that allowed this large project to move ahead and gain momentum. Even though later the pandemic affected Australia much more seriously, all of the preparations were underway. We truly thank Jehovah for the tremendous progress that has been made on this project so far.
Well, we're going out with a bang. Thus concludes the latest update on the Good News According to Jesus live action drama project. Apparently there are more updates in store, so multiple updates before we actually get to watch the thing. This is receiving no end of hype, so it had better be good, hadn't it? But those comments towards the end there, and I'll come to the craziness that Ron Curzon came out with, by the way. But let's just first focus on what's still fresh in our minds. Mark Sanderson there reiterating that the decision-making process to assign the Australasia branch this project was all part of Jehovah's hand, was all instigated or influenced in some way by the supreme almighty creator of the cosmos. In 2020, in a pandemic where 20,000 Jehovah's Witnesses have died, not to mention more than 5 million non-Jehovah's Witnesses dying from COVID as of now, so much death, so much misery, so much loss and grieving and pain and heartache, and Jehovah is all about assisting a filmmaking project. That's where his priorities lie. Who wants to worship that God? It's just not appealing, is it, to worship a God with such terrible prioritization skills? It's not like a filmmaking project is some insurmountable feat that cannot be achieved without divine assistance. If that's true, surely we can look at any movie that got made during the pandemic, of which there were many, or any series, anything requiring filmmaking, we can look at that and say, oh, Jehovah must have been involved in this project as well, because how else could it have happened during a pandemic? It's just utter nonsense. This is what we've descended to with this religion, and I'm embarrassed to have ever followed it. I would really be struggling as a Jehovah's Witness taking this remotely seriously. Not if I had the faintest clue what's going on worldwide and how much death and misery there is. How do you listen to this nonsense that's spewing from Mark Sanderson's mouth and think, oh, he's a really wise, mature, intelligent individual who's got his finger on the button and clearly must have been chosen as one of a tiny elite to rule as king priest over a paradise earth. No, sorry, I'm not seeing it. It seems that the higher up the ladder you get in the world of Watchtower, the more brain cells you must shed. If this is the sort of argument you end up making as a governing body member. And speaking of shedding brain cells, I think I lost a few IQ points when Ron Curzon said,
as stated in the 2020 annual meeting, it is likely this series will be used to touch the hearts and minds of billions of resurrected ones in the coming new world. Just think how this video series could help them learn about the example that Jesus set.
Just think about how this series could help 100 billion resurrected people who've ever lived learn more about Jesus. Yeah, that's really easy to imagine, Ron Curzon, Robo-Ron. It's really easy to imagine in paradise with no infrastructure. It's not been explained how there will be or whether there will be any electricity, any modern devices, any tablets, any TV screens that can be used to actually watch a video. But apparently what's going to happen is Genghis Khan, Vlad the Impaler, Osama bin Laden, Joseph Stalin, Adolf Hitler, the worst characters from history, Jack the Ripper, you name it, they're all going to get a second chance in paradise. And on materializing in paradise, they're going to be approached by an Armageddon survivor with a tablet. And they're going to be invited to watch a series that was filmed in Australia during the pandemic, reimagining the story of the Gospels. Come on. Are they just inviting ridicule? That's what it feels like. Robo-Ron is just brazenly insulting the intelligence of his audience. But what's most disturbing to me is that he seems to really believe it. His cult-addled mind seems to accept this fantasy. He really believes that the propaganda that he is responsible for as a member of the governing body's teaching committee, he fancies himself so much and esteems his work so much that he thinks that after 8 billion people have been buried following Armageddon, imagine that, getting rid of the evidence of the biggest genocide the universe will ever have seen. Let's pretend this never happened. Let's put turf over the remains of all of these men, women, and children who were slaughtered for not being Jehovah's Witnesses, so we don't have to see them when we're frolicking with pandas and gorging on watermelon. We don't want to be reminded about all of that death and the fact that the God that we now need to worship morning, noon, and night did all this. Let's just pretend that didn't happen. And while we're messing around with animals and eating fruit and cooking with our woks, we can just wait for a resurrected person to appear who could have done some vile things, could have committed atrocities, could, dare I say it, be a psychopath. But don't worry, we're going to fix them by showing them on a device that we've somehow managed to, lift from the rubble or construct out of bamboo? We're going to show them on a device this propaganda series that was filmed in Australia just before all of the killing started, and that will convince them to be good people, and then they'll be able to join us in paradise. You're welcome to that fantasy if you want, Robo-Ron. If it helps you feel important, if it helps you sleep at night regarding all of the hateful, vitriolic propaganda your department is churning out, go ahead. But I'm not convinced. All I'm seeing in this annual meeting so far is further proof of how detached from reality you and your leaders are.